Welcome to Hurry Up Pinball, a show where I teach you how to work on your pinball machine. Today I will be showing you how to install Mylar on the drain hole and shooter lane. So grab some tools and let's get going. Open the coin door, remove the lockdown bar, and remove the playfield glass. Partially raise the playfield and place it on the support brackets, then close the coin door to give yourself some extra room. Now remove the instruction cards from the apron. Use a screwdriver or a nut driver to remove the bolts holding on the apron. These screws are sometimes located underneath the apron cards, so be sure to check your machine. Gently slide the apron forward until the tabs are free from the brackets. Be careful not to scratch the playfield when removing the apron. Use your nut driver to remove the ball guide so you have clear access to the drain hole. Place any removed hardware in a magnetic nut bowl for safekeeping. While you can apply Mylar with the ball guide in place, I find it much easier to do so without the apron and ball guide in the way. Use your scissors to cut a piece of Mylar and test fit it to make sure the size is correct for the drain. Before you install the Mylar, clean the area where you will be installing the Mylar and wax it. This will help if you need to remove the Mylar at some point in the future. After test fitting the Mylar, use a pair of tweezers to peel back a small corner. Try to avoid touching the sticky side of the Mylar with your fingers, as this can leave fingerprints. After peeling back a small portion of the backing, use your scissors to cut off a small portion of the backing paper. While holding the Mylar with one hand, use your tweezers to grab the other end and place the sticky part of the Mylar into position. Starting from the sticky end, use your fingers to push down the Mylar and work out any air bubbles. Once you reach the portion with the backing paper, flip it over and use your tweezers to remove a portion of the backing paper. Again, try not to touch the sticky side of the Mylar with your fingers. Continue pushing the Mylar down as you go from one side to the other. Be sure to push down the edges around the Mylar as well. With the Mylar in position, use an X-Acto knife with a sharp blade to gently trim the excess Mylar away from the drain hole. Mylar is very thin and does not require a great deal of force to cut. If you make any mistakes when installing or cutting the Mylar, go ahead and cut another small piece and try reinstalling it. Be sure to go back over the Mylar and check for any bubbles, just in case. Here is how the drain hole should look with the Mylar installed. Notice how you can barely tell it's there. With the drain complete, it's time to move on over to the shooter lane. Use a little citrus degreaser and a cloth to clean any dirt or grime out of the shooter lane, then wax it. If you don't clean the shooter lane before installing the Mylar, you'll be trapping dirt and grime underneath the Mylar and you will not be able to clean it. Remove any items you think may get in the way of installing the Mylar, but don't forget to reinstall them later after installation is complete. Use a ruler to measure the width of the shooter lane and subtract a few millimeters from the overall width. Write this figure down so you don't forget it. Use your ruler and a pencil to mark a sheet of Mylar with a designated figure. Use a long level to draw a light line on the Mylar and then cut out the Mylar strip for the shooter lane. Take your time and try to cut the line as straight as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it'll look better when it's installed. Test fit the Mylar strip in the shooter lane. You want to have a little play side to side to make it easier to install. Using your tweezers, pull back a small portion of the Mylar and cut a section of the backing off. Now align the end of the Mylar with the beginning of the shooter lane and hold it in place. After lining up the beginning of the shooter lane with the Mylar, lay it out flat and then push down the sticky tab at the very end. It's a good idea to check the alignment of the Mylar again to make sure the Mylar strip is straight. If everything looks good, slowly peel back the backing paper while pressing the Mylar down on the shooter lane. Focus on the middle of the shooter lane and do not press down on the edges yet. If you do, you will not be able to press the Mylar into the channel. Take your time and work the Mylar into the channel all the way down to the beginning of the shooter lane. Go ahead and Mylar over the lane switch as well, as we will be trimming this later. Mylar sheets are cheap, so don't be afraid to make some mistakes along the way. I like to buy Mylar sheets as opposed to pre-cut kits for this very reason. If you make a mistake, you can pull up the Mylar and reposition it, but I wouldn't recommend doing this several times. If you need to, cut another strip and start over. Just remember to push the channel down first and work out any air bubbles as you go. Once the Mylar has been pushed into the channel, work your way from the middle of the shooter lane to the sides, working out any air bubbles that you find. For the side, work from the middle to the outside as you push down, pushing down small sections at a time, and avoid doing one long run from one end to the other. Run your finger up and down the lane several times to check for any additional air bubbles. Use an X-Acto knife to trim away the Mylar around the shooter lane switch. Take your time and try not to cut into the wood in the shooter lane. If you have any extra Mylar hanging off the back of the shooter lane, go ahead and trim that as well. With the shooter lane switch trimmed up, go ahead and push down on the Mylar to make sure it is sticking to the shooter lane. Now it's time to double check the shooter lane for small air bubbles. Run your finger along the channel and check for any bubbles along the way. If you find any, try to work them out the side of the Mylar. If you cannot work them out, use your X-Acto knife to poke a very tiny hole to let the air escape, then push the Mylar straight down. Poke the hole straight down and not at an angle. If you find any large bubbles trapped underneath the Mylar that you can't work out to the sides, I would suggest removing the Mylar strip and trying again with a new strip. With the drain Mylar and shooter lane Mylar installed, place the ball guide back in place and reattach it using your nut driver and the screws. You want to make sure the screws are snug, but do not over-tighten them as this can strip the wood. After gently sliding the apron back into place, thread the bolts into the apron from the outside. For hard-to-reach places, I like to use a pair of vice grips and a socket to hold the lock nuts while I tighten the bolts from the outside. With the apron reattached, be sure to put your apron cards back in place. Now completely lower the playfield back into position. Place the pinballs back in the machine, install the playfield glass and lockdown bar, and then close the coin door. This is Craig with Hurry Up Pinball, and I wanted to say thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, show your support for Hurry Up Pinball and click the subscribe button. We can also be found on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under Hurry Up Pinball.